Seeing this list, I have to say I really don't agree with most of this. I mean, some of it, yes, deserves to be in the top 10, but some of this I just don't agree with, and there's a lot of ones they're just leaving out. So with that said, I just want to give a couple shout outs to other great cartoon superhero shows, if you will. If you grew up around the early late 2000s, you know about the show. This show was taking over the game. I mean, this is coming off the heels of like Justice League Unlimited and all those other great shows. This show picked it right back up. It's like a right around the spectacular Spider-Man run, but this show was just absolute peak Ben 10 and everything that came out of it, and I wish we could have had more from this, even a live action movie, but this show was absolutely peak. The people that grew up watching this, you understand. Now here's a show that came out around right after Batman Beyond and entering the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Then we had Teen Titans on the other side of things. And this show, honestly, I prefer more over the Teen Titans Go show, but I like what they did in the Young Justice episode. But this show is peak. I love this. I like to think of this show kind of canon to the 2004 the Batman animated series, but yeah, if you haven't seen this show, please check it out. Speaking of the Batman animated series, along with the 90s Batman animated series, The GOAT show, but also Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, before all that in Batman Beyond, we had Superman the animated series, and this show doesn't get enough love and praise from Superman fans to DC fans to cartoon fans to comic book fans. This show just had it all, had the enriching storytelling. The animation was hit or miss, and some of the episodes were kind of like, fillers a lot most of the time, but this show was just, you just had to be there to watch the reruns. It was just on par with the Batman animated series. Now granted, not on above the Batman animated series, obviously that's higher, but this show had it all, and I love the show to death. Speaking of Superman animated series, and I know this is kind of new, but My Adventures with Superman, they have 2 seasons right now. It's very amazing. It reminds me some of the early days of the DC universe, how they used to have really enriched storytelling, but also with a modern take and animation and everything about it. I love what they're doing. Can't wait for season 3, and yeah, go check this one out. Here's the thing I don't understand. How are you going to have the Justice League Unlimited on that top 10 list, but not have the show along with it? This show, I guess you can group it with Justice League Unlimited, but this show, I would argue, had more enriching storytelling episodes than the Unlimited. Now, Unlimited has some great episodes, like the epilogue. I love the epilogue, even though it's more of a Batman Beyond show, but this show had it all. I mean, this is the kicker to a grander scale of what they would eventually go on to do with Justice League Unlimited, and this show was just amazing, and I revisit the show all the time, along with Young Justice. This show will always have a special place in my heart. I think it's very criminal that they don't have the 90s Spider-Man animated series on that top 10. This show did a lot for Spider-Man and the modern take of Spider-Man, from the movies to the comics. This show offered so much more, just like how they did with the Batman animated series, they did with the 90s Spider-Man animated series, and even the X-Men animated series. This show gave us so much unique storytelling for the Spider-Man story and lore, but also the Spider-Verse, but also the relationship between Doc Ock and Peter, like all that great stuff. A lot of your, the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy was really taken from the show. And even the Spectacular Spider-Man took some story elements and story ideas from the movies that came back all the way back to the show. Even the Spider-Verse stuff comes from the 90s Spider-Man animated series. So this show deserves more praise. I don't know why it's not even on the list. I mean, it should be way above Invincible, and I love Young Justice, but this show just, it was the founding fathers of, when it comes to comic book cartoons. Now, I understand this one not being on the list, the top 10, but, this show doesn't get enough praise and love. This show, was just a very laid back, a lot of things. This is the first real adaptation of Miles Morales, I believe, was in Ultimate Spider-Man, this show, so that was pretty cool. They had some great episodes, so I mean, this show has a special place in my heart. for real. It's definitely a binge watchable show. So just check this out. If you're a Spider-Man fan, a Marvel fan, or just a comic book cartoon fan, check the show out. Now, when it comes to comic book, like animated adult cartoon shows, Spawn should really get the praise and respect that it deserves. I mean, this show, granted, didn't have the best animation at all, but the story was just like the comics. They changed a little tweaks here and there from the comic book version, but it was so it was so dark. Like, it really captured the essence of what the Spawn comics were. And I love this show. I wish it didn't have a cliffhanger of an end. It didn't end like it didn't have a good ending, like as in like it didn't get to have closure. It kind of ended on a cliffhanger. But those 3 seasons with only 8 episodes, or I think it was 6 episodes, I believe. 6 episodes, I believe. But either way, this show I love. It's definitely worth the watch. It's very dark, very gritty, and it really opened the door for a lot of, your adult comic book animated shows. So check out Spawn. Now, when we're talking comic book shows, how we're not going to mention the 2000s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon show, the animated show. Now, granted, the 90s was awesome. I love what they did in the 2010s with that other show. That was a great one as well. But this was just, it took what they did for like Batman and Spider-Man for those 90s animated series and X-Men, and they applied it to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle show, and they did such an amazing job adapting some of the great stories from the comics, but also capturing what it felt like reading those comics, but also giving it like more of a grounded, serious take on these characters in the story, surrounded about these characters. And I love the show. Granted, I wasn't a fan of the futuristic stuff they did later in the show, but it did end in a good place. They did like a full-on Spider-Verse film at the end of the series, so go check that out as well. But check the show out. This is amazing. But yeah. Now, this show is stupidly underrated. Seriously, this show, I feel if it wasn't for this show, we wouldn't have Invincible, to be honest with you. This show was touching on subjects that a lot of other comic book animated shows that weren't doing. From comic books to regular animated shows, this show, besides Spawn, this show was tackling subjects to like racism and all types of stuff like that. Like stuff that we wouldn't see in these cartoon shows. This was a kid's show, but they managed to incorporate all that, but also be in a lighter tone, appealing to family, kids, and also being a part of that Batman animated series and Superman and Justice League Unlimited. Being part of that, they had like Batman cameos, some of the Bat Family cameos, the Justice League cameos. The show was peak, and I wish it would honestly get a Blu-ray release like the other shows, because this show deserves it. Deserves all the love and praise. I think, it's super, 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 super underrated. Doesn't get talked about much. But yeah, this is definitely one of the greats, and I'm going to give all the love and respect and shout out and love to this show. This show deserves everything and more. And yeah. Now, I know there's a lot of other shows that I missed that didn't even touch on, but tell me in the comments what some comic book cartoon shows that you grew up on, that you love, that deserve to at least be mentioned in this list, or even try to be in this list. Tell me in the comments, like this video, and follow for more cinema fans. Thank you for watching. Peace.